talkSPORT Extra Time. Lights, camera, action, as we welcome back to the show, as we do each and every Friday, our main man when it comes to all matters movie-related on the small screen, it's Van Connor, with 1, 2, 3 recommendations on Freeview of films we can catch this weekend to help the hours whiz by, and I've got 3 as well. Van, good morning, matey, and how the devil are you? How's your week been, or is it impossible to tell day from day these days?
Does time have any meaning in this coronavirus void in which you reside, Mr. Ross? But I'm fine otherwise, thank you.
Excellent. And time does have a meaning for you tonight. 10:45, BBC One. You've picked a cracker for us to get us started.
Yes, the Yorkshire boy in me saw that this was on and just couldn't resist. It's, of course, the full Monty, the feel-good 1997 British sleeper hit starring Mark Addy, Robert Carlyle and Tom Wilkinson. What's left to be said about this? It is the unemployed Sheffield steelworkers who decide to become strippers, and, well, the rest is history. I've got a clip for you of one of the great scenes of the movie, one of those many great scenes in the movie in which the boys are all sat around the job centre on West Street in Sheffield trying to decide whether or not to take their kit off.
And remember, you can leave your hat on. Let's have a listen.
Times 10 quid by 1,000, right? And you've got... yeah, well, a lot, a very lot.
I know, Dave, I mean, it's worth a thought, though, isn't it?
Oh, aye. I just see little and large prancing around Sheffield with the widgers hanging out. Now, that would be worth 10 quid.
Don't be so bloody daft. We were just saying,
Widgers on parade, bring your own microscope.
I don't see why the chuff not, Gerald.
Because you're fat and he's thin and you're both ugly.
That is still a cracker. I forgot how funny it was. Also, of course, it made almost international stars of Robert Carlyle and Tom Wilkinson. Robert went on to be a Bond villain, and Tom ended up as the bad guy in the first Rush Hour film, didn't it? So it's amazing the ripple effect that movie had. A great movie still, Van. Great call.
It really is. It's one of those which I had the pleasure of meeting Robert Carlyle at the News UK building recently, I think when I was doing one of our shows. And one of the first things I got to say to the man was, I'm from Sheffield. We adore the full Monty. It's like a religious thing for us. He's like, I've heard, don't worry, I'm just checking.
Brilliant stuff. Okay, so that's 10:45 tonight, BBC One, the full Monty. Well, I'm going slightly earlier. We've got a few recommendations this weekend from ITV4, coincidentally. Mine is 8 o'clock tonight. It's the film that Steven Soderbergh and Chris Nolan, who directed Inception and Memento, said was their favourite Bond film. It is starring George Lazenby, Diana Rigg, Telly Savalas. Great film directed by Peter Hunt, written by that Bond stalwart, which is my Bond. It is on Her Majesty's Secret Service. And I know that you're a bit of a fan of this film as well, are you not, Van Connor?
I am very much, and like you say about the fans it has in the form of Soderbergh and Nolan, you look at their movies and you can really see how much they love it, particularly with Nolan and Inception. But I think this is a corker of a Bond movie. This is one of the all-timers.
Okay, it's the only film Lazenby made as Bond. Of course, he upset the producers at the premiere because he turned up with long hair and a beard, which he refused to shave off. But let's have an excerpt from the trailer. It's 8 o'clock, it's tonight, it's ITV4. We have all the time in the world.
An avalanche of action. Bigger, better, different. It's got to be when he's around. Vistas of sweeping splendor. Different. It must be so if he's in the picture. Fabulous beauties, all of them dolls, every one different. They've got to be when he's around.
My name's Bond, James Bond.
Now, yesterday on the Drive show, Darren Gough and Adrian Durham were talking about Bond and Pierce Brosnan. Some people have said, had Sean Connery taken this role, this could have been the ultimate Bond film. What are your thoughts on that, Van?
Actually, I'm inclined to agree with that, to be honest. I think it's a genuinely terrific movie in that it does take the Bond, sort of the film template at that point and just gravitate it to something a lot bigger. And we saw this kind of recently with Skyfall, was an example, for instance, of a Bond movie that just took the established formula, the established norm, and just kicked it up a notch. In the case of Skyfall, it was taking it to that extra blockbuster level of something like The Dark Knight or what would become The Last Jedi. But I think this kind of did that ahead of its time as well.
Brilliant stuff. So that's my recommendation for today. 8 o'clock tonight, ITV4 on Her Majesty's Secret Service. If we go to tomorrow now, again, this is on ITV4, your choice. It's Bruce Willis, underrated film this, I think. 11:20 ITV4 tomorrow night. The Last Boy Scout. Tell us about this one, Van, please. Why this film?
This might be a contender for one of my top 10 10 favourite movies of all time. I think it's just a great action, comedic, sort of detective novel brought to life, really. It stars Bruce Willis and Damon Wayans. It's a sort of buddy cop comedy set in the realm of a sort of Philip Marlowe PI investigation for the early 1990s, if you can imagine such a thing, taking place in the world of CDLA clubs and professional football, and featuring Bruce Willis as a disgraced Secret Service agent turned PI who's forced to team up with a disgraced NFL linebacker played by Damon Wayans, and the pair are left to set out to solve the murder of Wayans' stripper girlfriend, played by Halle Berry.
What's not to love? Now, Raymond Chandler wrote about Philip Marlowe that he's got to patrol the mean streets. He says, down those mean streets a man must go who is neither himself mean nor afraid. Well, the last Boy Scout certainly is not that. Here's the clip.
Now, how'd she afford a place like this? These joints must run a fortune.
Tell me about it. I pay the rent.
Oh, isn't that charming? She sounds like a real special girl. What else you give her money for? Clothes, car payments?
Yo, it wasn't like that. Corey could have plenty of rich guys. Me, she loved.
Oh, love. Well, forget about it then.
You don't believe in love?
Yeah, I believe in love. I believe in cancer.
What, they're both diseases?
Yeah, something like that.
See, it has got that crackle of Raymond Chandler's dialogue, hasn't it? It's got that kind of wisecracking, bitter, world-weary feel to it. A great film, this one.
It really has got that crackle, as you say, but a lot of that is down to Shane Black doing the writing on this. This is when he was coming on his hot streak that saw him being involved in the writing of Predator, Lethal Weapon 2, this, The Long Kiss Goodnight. Of course, that noir, that on-the-nose detective angle would come back in 2005 when he made his own directorial debut with Robert Downey Jr. on Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which would then in turn inadvertently lead to the Marvel Cinematic Universe as we know it as well.
Brilliant stuff. Okay, now earlier this week we spoke to a curator from the Imperial War Museum at Duxford, Cambridgeshire, because they were planning a big exhibition building up to the 80th anniversary this September of the Battle of Britain. It's Battle of Britain Day, I think, September the 15th. So I've chosen a Battle of Britain war film for my film for tomorrow. It's 4 o'clock. It's ITV4. It is the Battle of Britain. Directed by Guy Hamilton, who made, I think, 4 Bond movies as well. An amazing cast, including Ian McShane, Michael Caine, Christopher Plummer, Robert Shaw, Susanna York. Sir Laurence Olivier's in it as well. It kind of does what it says on the tin. Didn't make money, this, because the aerial photography was so expensive, but apparently lots of these stock surplus footage was used in other films. It's a great movie. It's a bit old-fashioned, though, Van. I don't know how recently you've seen this one. I mean, it's a great film, but it's not the kind of... It's not Saving Private Ryan, is it? It's very much a kind of measured war. Could have been made in the 50s, almost, this film.
Very much so. To be fair, it does feel like a relic of sort of propaganda films of British cinema gone by, to be honest, but it still does the job it says on the tin.
Brilliant stuff. Here's a clip from the trailer, The Battle of Britain, 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, ITV4. Attention, and chocks away.
For those who fought in the Battle of Britain, it was a battle for survival. For the free world, it was a breathless moment in history. For failure would have plunged mankind into a new dark age. Never have so many owed so much to so few.
I presume that there is no one who will deny that England should fight on, even though the remainder of the continent of Europe is dominated by the Germans.
What's left of your army abandons weapons at Dunkirk. You're defenseless and just playing for time. Europe is ours. We can walk into Britain whenever we like.
Don't threaten or dictate to us until you're marching up Whitehall.
The war in France was over. The Battle of Britain was about to begin.
And there was a clip there from the key scene for me of the film. Sir Ralph Richardson and Kurt Jürgens, of course, was a Bond villain as well, as the British ambassador to Germany and this German highfalutin official. It's a great old film. It's a great, a real roster of great actors. And I've got a film for my final recommendation is Sunday afternoon. It's 3:40. It's one of my favourite channels. We're going to try and get one of the women behind it on the show next week. It's Talking Pictures TV on Freeview. 3:40. It's a black and white classic. Directed by Michael Curtis, who gave us films like Casablanca, the original Robin Hood with Errol Flynn. He made Yankee Doodle Dandy with Jimmy Cagney. He made Angels with Dirty Faces with Cagney. Also, he directed White Christmas. And then he made, in 1958, with Elvis Presley, Elvis's best film, without a shadow of a doubt. Shot on location, a lot of it in New Orleans. Made in 1958. They had to get a deferral for Elvis, yet to put off going to the army for 60 days to finish the film. It is, I think, a brilliant movie. Walter Mattau's the bad guy in it. Carolyn Jones is in it, who later became Morticia Adams. Of course, you know what I'm I'm going to say, don't you, Van? It's King Creole. Now, are you a fan of this film?
I am, actually, believe it or not. This is what my grandmother had a whole thing about making you watch all the Elvis movies.
Good woman. Good woman.
Even as a child, King Creole does leap out for reasons that I'm sure we'll go into after the very enjoyable trailer.
Well, it's based on a book by Harold Robbins called A Stone for Danny Fisher, and it was originally developed, I believe, as a vehicle for James Dean, who of course sadly died. and then of course they turned the character from a boxer into a singer, and that singer of course is Elvis Presley. Dean Jagger's in it as well, playing Elvis's dad, and Dean Jagger was the general in White Christmas. It's like they all inhabit the same cinematic universe. Let's have the trailer though. It's 1958. Elvis was told to lose 15 pounds to make this film and shave off his sideburns. Wow. He agreed, and he
never treat you badly, like a castaway broken toy. Oh, darling, I love you madly. Let me be your lover boy.
I've stacked chairs and bottles and swept the floor up of every joint on Bourbon Street. It's gotten so I look longer at a dame with clothes on and one without. I'm not a hoodlum, but I am a hustler. I've had to be for a very simple reason.
Young dream,
young dream, young dream.
My heart is filled with your dream.
I mean, the soundtrack to this, it's got Trouble on it by Lieber and Stoller. It's got King Creole. It's got Hard-Headed Woman on it. It's got the song New Orleans. It's an absolute... You can tell... I mean, I love this film. I probably watch this film once every 3 months. I can't help it. I love this movie, fam. We've all got films like that, almost a kind of comfort film. And it is, I must say, fair play to Elvis, under Michael Curtis's direction, as I said, made him lose over a stone in weight for it, which Elvis didn't take kindly to at first, but he holds his own with Walter Matthau. And I love Walter Matthau as a bad guy, because you forget also what a great actor he was. He's so good at doing comedy parts and musicals like Hello, Dolly. He's actually quite terrifying in this film.
No, he really is. I mean, again, I think we need to look back on this film now, because that watershed moment where I think people were actually able to consider Elvis seriously as a sort of dramatic actor, which at that stage he decidedly hadn't had, I don't believe.
No, absolutely not. And he went to the army and things changed for Elvis and the world moved on, of course. And you've got also a musical film for us to end with. Rather different one, though. It's a biopic. It's Film 4, Sunday night, 10 minutes past 11. Curious coincidence, I recommended this film on Monday this week to Sam Stevens with no idea you were going to pick it. Tell us about the James Brown story. Get on up. It's a great film, this.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant movie. I'm shocked that this wasn't a bigger hit when it came out. I feel like it just came out maybe the wrong month that year. Maybe it came out slightly too late for awards buzz. But it stars Chadwick Boseman, who most of us now know as the star of, the Black Panther character, 21 Bridges, Marshall, things like that. Great performance on right. This is the movie that put him on the map for me, in which he plays James Brown in the story of, what brought James Brown to prominence and what became of him. It's a movie so deliriously funk heavy that one of its opening lines literally has James Brown being flown in a helicopter over Vietnam as shots are taken at him at the air, screaming out, "They're trying to kill James Brown, they're trying to kill the funk."
Oh, I know. And of course, James Brown
at
performed...
that point, you've got my money.
I know, and James Brown performed in the documentary We Were Kings about the Rumble in the Jungle. James Brown performed a concert at that stadium. I mean, this man was, and always will be, an absolutely epic star. You've got a clip for us, have you?
I've got a clip of one of his, let's just say, more domestically challenged moments.
Here we go. It's Get On Up. It's Sunday night, 10 past 11 on Film 4, a must-see movie to end your weekend with, courtesy of Van Connor.
Woman, I called you yesterday. You went home?
I was home all day.
You were home all day? Why didn't you pick up?
I don't know. What time did you call?
Called you at 1. I called you again 1:15. Called you again at 2, and then I called you at 3.
Well, you must have wanted to talk to me pretty bad.
Where were you?
In the bathtub.
For 2 hours?
You want me to take shorter baths? We don't have a phone in the bathroom, James. Well, damn, what you gonna do? You gonna find me?
Wow, because of course you find these musicians. It is a very challenging film because there is some couple of terrible scenes of domestic abuse in it, but it is a must-watch film, I think, this Van. Thank you very much for 3 stonking recommendations there. Are you up to much over the weekend, or is it, again, a return to kind of treading water in limbo land?
Treading water as always, but you know what, at least I've got the movies to keep me occupied.
Whatever you do, catch King Creole and Get On Up. That's Sunday sorted for you on talkSPORT Extra Time. Always an absolute pleasure. That's me, Paul Ross, and Van Connor with some movie recommendations for the weekend on Freeview. Up next, we are talking sporting anniversaries and birthdays for tomorrow's date, the 2nd of May. You lucky people.
talkSPORT break.